Recording. All right. For the recording, welcome back. We are what are we? Monday, Friday study group studying Heart Sutra. This is class 2 out of 8, I think. On December 16th, 2024, let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you, just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try to help fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. We're learning how it's possible. And so we turn our minds back to our precious holy guide. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So please allow me to read to you the Heart Sutra once again. If you know it, you're welcome to recite along with me. Otherwise, just listen to the words. The Exalted One, the Lady of Conquest, the Sutra on the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom. I bow first to all enlightened beings and to every warrior saint. Once I heard this teaching. The conqueror was staying on Vulture's Peak in the keep of the king. With him was a great gathering of monks and a great gathering of warrior saints. At a certain moment, the conqueror went into deep meditation on the part of the teachings known as the awareness of the profound. At that moment, too, did the realized being, the great warrior, the Lord of power, loving eyes, see into this one deep practice, the practice of the perfection of wisdom. He saw perfectly that the 5 heaps, the 5 parts of a person, were empty of any nature of their own. Then, by the power of the enlightened one, the junior monk named Shariputra turned and asked this question of the great warrior, loving eyes, the realized one, the Lord of power. If any son or daughter of noble family hope to follow the deep practice of the perfection of wisdom, what would they have to do? This then is the answer. I'm sorry. This then is the answer. I can't find it. This then is the answer that the Lord of power, the realized one, the great warrior, loving eyes, gave to the junior monk named Shariputra. Here, Shariputra is what any son or daughter of noble family should see, who hopes to follow the deep practice of the perfection of wisdom. See first, all 5 heaps, all 5 parts of a person are free of any essence of their own. Your body is empty. Emptiness is your body. Emptiness is nothing but your body. And your body is nothing but emptiness. The same is true of your feelings, your ability to discriminate between things. And the other factors that make you up, and all the different kinds of awareness that you possess, all of them are empty. And thus we can say, Shariputra, that every existing thing is emptiness. Nothing has any characteristic of its own. Nothing ever begins. No thing ever ends. No thing is ever impure. Nothing ever becomes pure. Nothing ever gets less, and nothing ever becomes more. And thus we can say, Shariputra, that with emptiness there is no body. There are no feelings. There is no ability to discriminate. There are none of the other factors that make you up, and there is no awareness. There are no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to smell, nothing to taste, nothing to touch, and nothing to think of. There is no part of you that sees. There's no part of you that is aware of what you see. And this is true all the way to the part of you that thinks and the part of you that is aware that you are thinking. There is no misunderstanding your world. There is no stopping this misunderstanding. And the same is true all the way up to your old age and death, and to stopping your old age and death. I'm out. All right, time in. There is no suffering. There is no source of this suffering. There is no stopping this suffering. There is no path to stopping this suffering. There is no knowledge. There is nothing to reach, and there is nothing not to reach. Thus it is, Shariputra, that warrior saints have nothing to reach. And because of this, they are able to practice the perfection of wisdom and stay in this perfection of wisdom. This frees them from every obstacle in their minds. This frees them from all fears. They go beyond all wrong ways of thinking and reach to the ultimate end of nirvana. All the enlightened beings of the past, the present, and the future too follow this same perfection of wisdom, and thus bring themselves to perfect enlightenment, to the matchless state of a totally enlightened Buddha. Thus are they the sacred words of the perfection of wisdom, the sacred words of great knowledge, sacred words of the unsurpassable, sacred words that are equal to the one beyond all equal, sacred words that put a final end to every form of pain, sacred words you should know are true, for false they cannot be, sacred words of the perfection of wisdom, which here I speak for you. Tayata gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi swaha. And thus it is, Shariputra, that great warrior saints must train themselves in the profound perfection of wisdom. With this, the conqueror stirred himself from his deep state of meditation. He turned to the great warrior, the realized one, loving eyes, the Lord of power, and blessed his words, saying, "True, true," he said, and true again. Thus it is, O son of noble family, and thus is it. One should follow the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have taught it. Every one of those Ganthas rejoices in your words as I do. And when the conqueror had spoken thus, the junior monk Shariputra took joy, and the warrior, the realized one, loving eyes, the Lord of power, took joy as well. And all the assembled disciples took joy, and so did the entire world with its gods and its men and near gods and spirits too take joy. All sang their praises of what the conqueror had spoken. Okay, I apologize for that unpleasant interruption. This body of flesh and blood is a real pain in the butt. I've had enough of it. All right, so last class, we left off still in the middle of Choni Lama's commentary, selling us on the benefits of learning, studying, practicing what the Heart Sutra teaches. We had already said, he quoted from that Samadhi Raja Sutra. If you're able to analyze what emptiness means and you are eventually able to see emptiness directly, then this is the only way to reach nirvana and enlightenment. There is no other way. He goes on to quote from Arya Nagarjuna, whose nickname is Second Buddha, meaning Buddha come again, like the Shakyamuni Buddha's second coming. Not that he did, right, in a literal way, but Nagarjuna picked up on Shakyamuni Buddha's second turning of the wheel, the Prajnaparamita teachings. And I want to say revived them, because Buddha did teach them, but that wasn't what was being emphasized or practiced mostly. From Buddha's time, 550 BC, to Arya Nagarjuna, 280. That's a long period of time when it was mainly Vinaya, right? Geshe-la says, the Abhidharma, the accountants were in charge, but meaning the first level understanding, making the effort to avoid harming others in order to reach one's own nirvana, was the emphasis of Buddhism for all that time. And along comes Nagarjuna, who we know as this great wisdom being, and he's teaching love. So he's like connecting the dot between behavior and reality, and bringing that to the forefront for practitioners. So he's called Buddha. Buddha had to come again and teach again, and that's Nagarjuna. So he says, anyone who doesn't get to see emptiness in this life, they will never get any kind of freedom. They will just continue to live like this, meaning our samsaric world, trying to find our happiness in all the wrong places. Nagarjuna's MO is everything Buddha ever taught was really about no self-nature. It maybe wasn't saying it directly, but everything he taught was to lead us to this realization of the no self-nature of all appearing things, all existing things. And Choni Lama says that Nagarjuna is pointing out that all of Lord Buddha's teachings are like how all rivers flow to an ocean, right? Different oceans, but in this case, they all lead to the ocean of that ultimate happiness that we're calling total enlightenment. So sooner or later, and we reach this place where we are meeting up with teachings and practices through which we will reveal to our own selves what's meant by the empty nature of all existing things. So Choni Milana goes again into Diamond Cutter Sutra. And in Diamond Cutter Sutra, there's this recurring theme in that sutra where Buddha is talking about, how much merit you make if you were able to, take all the billion planets and cover them with the 7 kinds of precious jewels and take all of that and offer it to the Buddha. That would be a lot of good karma, right? Right. And then he says stuff like, yeah, but if somebody were to, they call it hold, but they mean like learn and memorize just 4 lines of the Diamond Cutter Sutra and share it with somebody else and help that somebody else understand those 4 lines in the correct way, that person would make more goodness, incomparably more goodness than the one who offered all those jewels to the Buddha. Like you can't even compare the goodness. And Choni Lama says, but he doesn't just mean memorize 4 lines. He means memorize them and live by them. But he's connecting, understanding this idea of emptiness to our behavior. Because to learn that nothing has any nature of its own as an idea, as a philosophical idea, it's just interesting, fascinating, actually. And maybe it would lead you to be able to figure out quantum physics. But if it doesn't lead us to the, oh my gosh, right? The reason I see things the way I do, because they're empty, there must be a reason I see things the way that I do. ... because the logic goes, it takes a long time to get there. The end result is I see things the way I do. They're results of some cause I made because I'm experiencing it, unique to me. I had to have made the causes unique to me. How do I make causes for experiences, right? The punchline is see yourself doing something, saying something, thinking something towards another. And it takes that connection between my experiences and my behavior for emptiness to have the significance that Lord Buddha is trying to teach. And so Diamond Cutter Sutra is going through that whole thing again and again and again. And it's kind of crazy because he seems like he just changes subjects in the middle of it. And, his poor disciple is the fall guy for all of it. But it's on purpose, trying to show us this connection. So Heart Sutra is different. So Heart Sutra is going to show us the connection between emptiness and those 5 stages. We haven't finished talking about quite yet. The 5 realizations that through which we transform ourselves from suffering human to totally enlightened being. We need to connect that dot. And Geshe skillfully has called it the marriage of karma and emptiness. And again, it's a great idea. If we can get it in our head, we're trying to get it in our heart so that we become so skillfully aware that my every moment is planting the causes, the seeds for my future experience, and to be able to live in that state of mind of planting, planting, planting. Whereas our ordinary state of mind is living in results, results, results. And I want, more of this and less of that, and etc. So again, Heart Sutra is a teaching that is showing us the true nature of our reality. And then our job with our teacher is to connect that to our behavior. So then his next selling point, advertisement for Heart Sutra, is he quotes from Lord Manjushri. Lord Manjushri is specialist in wisdom, Buddha manifesting as specialist in wisdom when he takes the form of Manjushri in Diamond Way level, high level Bodhisattva, who I guess has already reached that stage where he said, when I'm a Buddha, I'm going to specialize in teaching people wisdom. So, either way, Sutra or Diamond Way, he's a authority figure on on wisdom. And Choni Lama shares that at one point, Manjushri said to his whoever he was talking to, he said, look, when you're hearing Diamond Cutter Sutra, any of the Prajna Paramita sutras, Perfection of Wisdom sutras, and you hear the verses and you're here in the class and there's a part of you that's going, I don't think so. I don't know about that, right? It just doesn't maybe make sense the first 50 times through it. But something in your mind, in your heart goes, but maybe there's something to this. To just have that doubt about your doubt, about the truth of the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, that's enough to rattle all your karmic seeds that have been made with ordinary selfish belief in things have their own nature, to just have doubt that they might be empty. Have a little bit, right? Do you see what I'm trying to say? You don't have to hear the Heart Sutra and go, wow, that's truth. I'm going to study it in order for it to impact us. All we have to do is hear it and go, oh, that's interesting. Maybe there's something to it. And you've already put yourself close to the conveyor belt. I like that argument for studying Heart Sutra the best, because it feels so real. Just a little bit of maybe this is true. And it points out that there have in history been people who have heard this Heart Sutra, maybe even memorized it and recited it, but didn't have the seeds to receive a teaching on it, or didn't have the seeds to believe it. I mean, I put myself, maybe a long time ago as an Asian kid, and my parents made me memorize the Heart Sutra and say it, and then what I saw in my world was, nobody lived according to it. And then as a teen, I'd reject it, wouldn't I? It's like they teach me this, but they act like that. I mean, I'm really talking to myself as a Christian kid. And it's like reject. And then you bring those seeds forward, multiple lifetimes, and you hear the Heart Sutra again, and maybe those seeds ripen and reject. So there could be many, many people who've heard of the Heart Sutra, but don't have the seeds to relate to it. And then there are those that maybe that same kid dutifully using the Heart Sutra, thinking, nah, but maybe. And then those little but maybe seeds are doing their thing. And then here we are, studying the Dharma in a way that's so accessible to non-monastics. I mean, that's just extraordinary. And it's all coming out of our good seeds, is what I'm trying to say. So really, there's no reason to behave morally unless we understand this thing about planting seeds. And then once we do understand this thing about how our behavior imprints our minds such that that creates the circumstances of our own experiences, then it's like, oh my gosh, my morality is like the most important thing. And it isn't like a morality that somebody says it has to be like this. It's a morality based on, when I see myself do this to an other, it's going to come back to me bigger. So I get to be my own authority on what morality really means. And then if I'm smart, I'll go to somebody who's been there, done that, and said, you know, you might want to look at these 10 different aspects of behavior if you want to make it easier on yourself. But even still, how those come forth out of our behavior are unique to each of us, aren't they? And there's no right or wrong, even within the 10 non-virtues. There's no bottom line to what's good and what's bad. Because it's all based on how it comes back to us. You know that. Okay, so sooner or later, we ourselves will come to the realization that this thing we're calling marriage of karma and emptiness is in fact the explanation for all of existence. And, you know, the words Geshe-la always uses is that we'll understand that that's true. But again, when I hear myself say that, I also feel myself hear it true as something in it from it, which means I'm not really understanding it. So we will come to see that it is the explanation for reality. And then if it's true that everybody just wants happiness, now I have a tool, right, where I can actually be the agent of that happiness because I know where it really comes from. So that's the purpose of studying, learning, using the Heart Sutra and Khedrubje's meditation that he teaches us about it. And so that's why we're here. So let's actually start in. You know what I'll do for next class? I'll get a sutra and we'll put it up so that we can look at it. Sorry, I didn't think of that before. Duh. Okay, I'll do that next time. So let's actually start in to Chori Lama's description, word for word, of this Heart Sutra. And he starts with the title. The title in Sanskrit is Arya Bhagavati Prajna Paramita Hridaya. In Tibetan, Pak Bad Chomden Dema Sherab Kiparo Tu Chimpa Ningpo. So let's start backwards. Hridaya in Tibetan, Ningpo. It means heart, H-E-A-R-T, the heart, in the sense of the essence of something is the heart of something, the heart of the artichoke. The Sumati used to make his waffles in this extra special way, so they had extra butter and extra syrup. And, you know, I always cut calories, so my little waffles were pretty dry, and his were special. And he would take the centerpiece, you know, he had a stack, and this big centerpiece of waffle that was just full of butter, and he would stab his fork and he'd give it to me. He'd give me his heart of his waffle. Ningpo.
Wow.
That's what we mean by Ningpo. Sharab ki paro tu chimpa is the prajna paramita in Sanskrit. Prajna means wisdom. It's sharab in Tibetan. Paramita, we call it perfection. So prajna paramita means the perfection of wisdom. And that has various connotations we'll study. And it seems like it means you finally know something that we didn't know before. And we know it so perfectly that we can finally use it. And it does mean that. But paramita, when the Tibetans translated it into paro to chimpa, they saw in it this connotation of gone to the other side. So paramita literally means gone to the other shore or gone to the other side. And it's like, how do you get perfection out of that? And that's kind of a long story. But so the Tibetans didn't want to just use whatever their word is for perfection. They wanted the gone to the other side aspect of it. And then gone to the other side sounds like it means, you know, you live in California and you decide you're going to go to Japan, right, for the Kyoto teachings. And so you got to go across the ocean to the other shore. And it does literally mean that. But when we're talking about gone to the other side in terms of referring to the Buddha and the wisdom of the Buddha, which is what we are referring to, what's the other side that we are trying to go to? And I love how simple Geshe Michael came up with the mudra, right? For wisdom. We are this siders. We experience ourselves as here and others as out there, and the others are coming at us. Their identity is coming at us, their activity is coming at us. We see things as coming at us. And somewhere along the way, we will have the direct experience that, oh my gosh, my own seeds ripening are making me see things come at me like that. But in fact, they really exist as things coming from me, right? And so technically, an other sider, someone who's gone to the other side, means they've gone to this side of experiencing themselves in their world as ripening projections and nothing but. So they've gone from, right, this wrong side, seeing things come at us, to being a being. This isn't quite adequate to say a being seeing things come from them, because that leaves them separate from it and they're not. So the other sider means they're very aware that they and their world is being created moment by moment, results of their past behaviors, which means current behavior is critical for what's going to come in future. And someone who's fully other sider, they're directly experiencing that appearing nature and the empty nature of all things at all times. And so then you can't really talk about a past, present, and a future because it's all happening at once, but it is still happening as past, present, and future. So other sider, paro tu chimpa. The perfection of wisdom is this being who is now identifying as this
Run to the other side.
coming out, right? Coming from their own behavior. Like words fail. I can't get it right to get what other side really means. And it's in English, perfection of wisdom. Do you see how inadequate the English is? Which is why we're doing this so word for word, so that we can really understand as we are using it for ourselves, let alone sharing it with somebody else. Sharab Kiparo tu chimpa ningpo, the heart, ningpo, of the perfection of wisdom, which is how it got its term, Heart Sutra. Okay. Then Arya Bhagavati, Pakpa Chamden Dema. Bhagavati is the female version of Bhagawan. Bhagawan means conqueror. But the word Bhagawan, when you break it down into its root and blah, 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 it's long, it has all these different connotations with it. That again, the English word conqueror is too limited for us to get the full meaning. And typically when we say conqueror, like I think of, I don't know, Genghis Khan, Mongolian, who conquered the world practically. And I don't know if my history is right, but my picture of him is that he was a cruel, authoritative dictator, and everybody was afraid of him because, if you do one thing wrong, off with your head kind of thing. I don't know. Hopefully he wasn't really like that. But when we think conqueror, we have a tendency to think of oppressive and right. So we don't tend to admire and aspire to be conquerors, do we? No. But this conqueror, the Buddha called the conqueror, it's that they are supposed to be someone that we hear and it's like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be that kind of conqueror. So the word Bhagawan holds these different meanings that, yes, they have conquered over something significant and they possess something special and they've gone beyond. So here in this word Bhagawan is also this idea of having gone somewhere, which just doesn't mean literally, but they have transformed themselves so significantly that you can't say they still are where they were before, because there is no where they were before. It was also mistaken and now it's done, gone, right? So conquer does mean conqueror. They've conquered something. And what they have conquered is all their mental afflictions, right down to the very last one, which is the ignorance, which is the misunderstanding of the connection between behavior and experience. So they have conquered their ignorance. And along the way, they had to have conquered all their selfishness, because that's how you overcome your ignorance. So now if in the process of overcoming our ignorance, so let me go back. A totally enlightened being is a being who experiences, they call it ultimate bliss. Let's call it that being who is a being made of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. Their personal experience is happiness, happiness, and more happiness. They call it bliss. And so as aspiring Buddhists, like our goal would be, I want to be a being who's just happy, like this ultimately happy being. And that's my like all-time goal. And maybe we even get enough understanding that we'll determine, and I'm going to do it before this thing wears out too much to use it for that. And then some part of us thinks, yeah, but how selfish is that? You know, if my goal is just my own happiness, it doesn't feel right at some level of our own ignorance. It keeps us from really getting on board for a lot of reasons. But then how is it that we're actually going to be successful in creating that state of our own being as ultimately happy? When we understand the marriage of karma and emptiness, the only place our own happiness comes from is trying to help somebody else have a little bit of healthy moral happiness and pleasure, right? So we can be like, I'm going to reach my ultimate happiness. And the way I do that is try so hard to give you a little bit, just a little bit. And it's like, oh, like as we start to get the picture, the pendulum swings from I'm on my own path, I'm going to really get this done for everybody and like get out of my way because I'm being a Buddhist, to wait, everybody, right? Come, how can I help you? Can I do your dishes? Can I mow your lawn? Can I? And then you get happier, karmically happier. So it's like this beautiful upward spiral that we get going on that we already had the seeds for at some point, because here we are inspired and we've already been the type of person is like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And but maybe we didn't quite connect the dots. So back to that Manjushri saying, even if you have just a little bit of maybe this is true in your heart, seeds, you're so close to the conveyor belt. Like all of us are so close to stepping onto that conveyor belt that if there's doubt in your mind that you can do it, like kick that doubt out right now. Because here we are. So conqueror has conquered their own mental afflictions right down to their obstacles to omniscience. Den means possesses something. What they possess, of course, is the goodness, the merit from all the kindness that they did, through which they grew their wisdom, right? Through which they grew their kindness, through which they grew their wisdom, right? You can't ever stop saying it. And then the gone beyond, a part of the Bhagawan, Tibetans, it's the word day, Chomden day. That's gone beyond the misunderstanding, gone beyond the selfishness. It's the idea that we were talking about going to the other shore. So the Tibetans, Chomden pack in all three of these conqueror by way of possessing the goodness, by way of having gotten to that other shore of understanding things look like they're coming at us, but in fact, they look that way from us. Our seeds make things look like they're coming at us. All right. But then it's Bhagavati, not Bhagawan. The Bhagavati means the lady, conqueror who possesses her share, who's gone beyond. And in this Buddhist tradition, we have the two wings of the bird, method and wisdom. And those method and wisdom have all these different correlations through which we can understand them more and more subtly. And so the method side is correlated to our right channel. It's correlated to our daytime. It's correlated to our activities. Obviously, it's correlated to our masculinity. So all people have masculinity and femininity, this duality. For some of us, our female energy predominate, and that makes us ladies. For some, the male energy dominates, and that makes us men. For more and more, it's not so clear, right? For more and more beings in my world, it's not so clear that there's a predominance. So we all have both, is the point. And so the right side, the male side, the method side is the love and compassion side. Emptiness acting, when we're acting from emptiness, our state of mind, our state of heart is love and compassion. Compassion means I see suffering, I can't stand it, I wish I can do something about it. Love is there's a being who wants to be happy, right? I want to contribute to their happiness in some way, or at least not contribute to their suffering. Love, compassion, it's our active side. The wisdom side is correlated with our left side channel. It's correlated with nighttime, the dark, the hidden, the secret, the inside, the fecund side, right? The potential side, the female energies of each of us. And wisdom is this absence of self-nature of whatever we're considering at the moment, which is not something that can be an appearing thing. It's an absence of something that we thought was there that actually wasn't. So the whole concept wisdom is a left side thing. It's a female energy thing, because those female energies have to do with this, that which is unseen, but fecund, right? So all these different correlations, cogitate them, think about them, and it will bring more and more meaning to what you mean when you use for yourself or others the word wisdom versus method, and how those two work together, right? They must work together for them to have any significance at all. All right, so the title is The Conquering Woman of Wisdom, the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom. The Conquering Woman, the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom. So that perfection of wisdom, we already said, is referring to the wisdom in the mind of a Buddha, which means they've already gone to the other side. But we use the term perfection of wisdom also for that growing state of mind that understands the marriage of karma and emptiness, all the way up to our direct perception of the seeds ripening, followed by the seeing emptiness directly, that puts us on the path of habituation where we're using what we now know to be true but can't see again directly to guide our behavior even more subtly than we were using it before. And so that perfection of wisdom is a perfection of wisdom that we're using to grow our perfection of wisdom. And we'll hear it, they call it a perfectionizer, right? We practice our perfections as perfectionizers until we reach Buddhahood. And then we do our perfections as perfections, but not actually until we reach total Buddhahood. But it doesn't mean they're not perfections. However, Choni Lama points out that until we have the perfection of wisdom, meaning the direct perception of emptiness, perfection of wisdom, we can have spent lifetimes practicing the 6 perfections and will have not made anything more than good karma, meaning samsaric pleasure that wears out, until we have the actual perfection of wisdom, meaning seeing emptiness directly because of the influence on all our seeds. That after that, we are finally planting seeds that will ripen as our actual perfection of wisdom, which is our state of mind of Buddha. So Heart Sutra is, we can say, oh, it's teaching about the perfection of wisdom that we're developing, or we can say it's teaching about the perfection of wisdom as it will be when we are Buddhas. And Choni Lama says, don't make that distinction. It's teaching us about both. So when we hear Prajnaparamita, Sharaki Parati Chimpa, somehow, right, in the context that you hear it, it's like, oh, are we talking about the one I'm developing? Or are we talking about the one I've already got? And it's like, well, I know I don't have that one, the already got one. But so we make the distinction. And commonly, I've seen myself work with this a little bit. And it's like when you're reading something and they use this term, perfection of wisdom, if you stop and you go, what are they talking about? You'll be able to see whatever they're talking about, a different meaning in whatever's being written, depending on whether you're reading it as talking to me about how I develop my perfection of wisdom or talking to me about a Buddha's perfection of wisdom, and you'll see it in the same paragraph. Right? It's really fun to get a glimpse into the emptiness of the words that we're reading and see that, son of a gun, there's different meanings inside here. You all have the seeds for that, I promise you. Because here you are. All right, so it's already time for a break. Let's get refreshed. I'm pausing the recording, aren't I? Yes. Pause record. Next comes Dike Dake Dupe Duchik Na. It means once I heard this teaching. And it has three meanings hidden inside there. So I think we understand that Lord Buddha did not write down any of his teachings. He didn't have teaching notes. He got asked a question and he spoke the answers. And he had, disciples there, people listening. And then, different ones went to different teachings and heard different things. And 50 years later, I don't know the actual circumstances, but they say he went to a party and ate poison mushrooms and got sick, and then said, okay, this is my last teaching, goodbye. And he laid down and withdrew his emanation. We would say he died, right? His physical body died. And his disciples couldn't do anything about it. And imagine being one of those disciples where you just think your teacher's going to live forever, right? I mean, they've got such goodness. Wouldn't they live forever? Of course they would live forever. And then they're gone all of a sudden. And you don't have anything written down from what they said. I don't know. I don't know when it happened, but eventually they apparently got together and said, we got to write down what we remember. And somebody said, well, I remember being at this particular teaching. And the ones who say, I remember, they really did remember, as in word for word, remember. So it's his students, his disciples, that are the ones who actually wrote the sutras. But wait a minute, the sutras are the words of a Buddha. And now they're not, because it's his students that wrote them down. Like maybe they changed the words a little bit. Or, we hear Buddha spoke in Sanskrit, but the beings there heard their own language. So I don't know, did some of those beings say, I heard Pali, so I'm going to write it in Pali, because that's what they heard. And I don't know, right? I don't really know how it came down, but we have sutras. They are written down. Buddha didn't do it. Somebody had to have done it. So here, this verse, once I heard this teaching, one meaning is it's referring to this council, they call it, where these different disciples got together and said, well, I remember this one, I'll write it down. You remember that one, you write that one down. And in doing so, they compiled, I guess, as many teachings as got compiled. So this, once I heard this teaching, has that inside it. Like, for it to be meaningful, we need to know this history. And apparently, somehow Buddha gave his permission for that to happen in that way. And again, I don't know if as he's dying, he said, you guys better write this stuff down, or how that went. But it's like it's accepted that these sutras that are called the words of a Buddha were actually written by somebody else. And Buddha gave the permission. And in some way, you could say Buddha was influencing that person to be able to write it down in that way. And so, yes, they are the words of a Buddha, mostly. Sometimes sutra word means a short book, and that's not words of a Buddha, but mostly it is. Then the second meaning of once I heard this teaching means that the person who wrote that is telling us he was actually there. So he didn't say, once I heard of this teaching, once I heard about that teaching in Barcelona. It's like, I was there. Katja was there. She can say, this is what happened to at least Katja, right? While she was there. So once I heard this teaching is telling us that whoever wrote this down was in the audience. And that's going to be significant when we learn about who was in the audience, which is coming up soon. Then the third meaning is once I heard this teaching is the person is saying, I heard this teaching one time. And they heard it. And we would say memorized it. But it isn't that they heard it and then memorized it. It's that they heard it and then they could repeat it. Like having, what is it? Photogenic memory, right? Some people can read something and then it's, their seeds are such that they can repeat it, they could rewrite it because they know it, just having read it once. If that's a pleasant thing, karmically, it would be some kind of goodness, wouldn't it? I suppose that in some ways could be not a pleasant thing. So anyway, these people apparently had what would you call it? Photographic memory, autogenic memory. You hear it once, and then you could repeat it instantly. We think, oh, as humans, modern technology, we can fly, we have computers, we're so smart. But yeah, there were beings back then, 550 BC, that had this capability of hearing something once and being able to repeat it word for word, verbatim. It would take a pretty clear, undistracted, open state of concentration, awareness, right? Concentration, hearing it. I don't know what it would take. Like my rejoicing festival is meditative concentration. And it's like, ooh, I think I have an extra rejoiceable about those beings who can hear and they're so concentrated that their imprint is made so purely, right, that it can come right back out whenever they need it. Imagine. Like I get this sense of my imprints being so jam-packed, right, with crap, pardon the, right, from just eons of life, that no wonder I can't remember, what I said 10 minutes ago. It's all karmically driven. So this person heard it in person. They heard it only once. And they were able to be the one who would write it down later. And it's permissible for us to accept the sutra as words of a Buddha given in this way, right? These three different meanings of once I heard this teaching. Okay, so this is still not the teaching happening yet. It's all the setup. So we've had the title, we've had the intro telling us how it came to us. And we finally get to the sutra itself. Whose Tibetan is Chomdende Kelpa Kapna Jagu. There it is. Chomdende, we already learned that. Bhagavan, the conqueror, the one who possesses his share of goodness, meaning like beyond goodness, the one who's gone beyond, that conqueror. Where is it? Gelpoi Kapna Jagu Pumpoi. This is saying, it's the setup. The conqueror was staying on Vulture's Peak in the Keep of the King, is the English. So Choni Lama says, look, this is included so that we won't misunderstand who's actually giving this teaching. And it's interesting because in the Chinese Heart Sutra, it starts right out with the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara answering a question. And it doesn't have the setup. So one might misunderstand and think that the Heart Sutra was actually being taught by Avalokiteshvara. And it's just, so the impact could be equally great, but it is not quite precise. And a debater would go, well, then the Heart Sutra is not worthy of a Buddha, because sutra teaching Avalokiteshvara is a bodhisattva, not a Buddha. And anyway, so Choni Lama's pointing out that Heart Sutra does start out telling us that it's Lord Buddha that's gathered there with his disciples. So Chomden de Gelpoi Kapna Jagu Pumpoi. Kap Gelpoi means the king. Gelpoi Kap means the king's place. A place the king resides, maybe not full time, but Geshe poetically calls it in the keep of the king, meaning there's this place in India that's owned by the king. Wait, all of the places are owned by the king, but it's his special garden or special mountain or something. And he's allowed Buddha and his disciples to gather there to give a teaching. So this is setting up saying the conqueror was in this particular place in India when this teaching was given. So we've already heard that whoever wrote this down was there. And the place that we're talking about is Rajgiriha in India. So in that particular place owned by the king, where the king would stay, there's this mountain, like a pile of rocks kind of mountain, like Texas Canyon in Arizona. And the pile of rocks apparently looks like a vulture. And it's not quite clear if the mountain looks like a vulture or if it's a big pile of rocks where a lot of vultures hang out. So there's always vultures there. It's not quite clear to me which one it is, but it's called Vulture's Peak. Jagu Pumpoi. Jagu means wild bird in Tibetan, and specifically vulture. So, you know, vultures have that funny, right, way of looking. And so apparently this big rock mountain looks like this vulture. And some scriptures say that when our world is destroyed, Vulture's Peak will be the last to go. I don't know. So if you want to be the last to go live at Vulture's Peak. So, but it's a really specific place. And so this is where this one disciple was with all the rest when he heard this teaching. And Lord Buddha was there. That's why it's included. So that we can now know that Buddha was the one that was giving this teaching. On Vulture's Peak, this land where the king would stay. Okay. Tumden Day, Gyalpoi, Kapna, Jagu, Pungpoi. Rila, Gelongi, Gendin, Chempo Dong, Chungchub, Sempe, Gendin, Chempo Dong, Top, Chikdu, Shukte. All of that is telling us who was there with the Buddha on Vulture's Peak, at Vulture's Peak, in the Keep of the King. There's two different groups of disciples. Gendin, Tibetan, is the word for monks. It does just say monk, but later on in the sutra, it's going to specifically be talking about men and women. So it's not clear whether there were any nuns there or not. In the early Buddha's days, there were no nuns. You know that story where he didn't allow women to take ordination because I don't know why. And his stepmom and wife came to him repeatedly. We want to ordain. We want to ordain. No, 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 no. I don't know what happened, but finally they went to one of the disciples and convinced the disciple that it would be a good thing for women to ordain. And finally Buddha agreed. So maybe it hadn't happened yet. Maybe there weren't any ordained women at the time of the Heart Sutra, but they're not mentioned here, but men and women practitioners will be, which will be significant later. So Gelongi Gendin Chempo means there was this great gathering of monks. Monks meaning ordained men. Ordained meaning they've taken those vows to very specifically declare themselves on their path of avoiding harming others to very, very significantly subtle degrees. And their goal in taking those vows is to reach their own personal nirvana. So here's a great gathering of ordained men come for this teaching. And ordinarily we would think great means there are many of them. But Choni Lanama points out that the great is not referring to the number necessarily here, but rather it's referring to the spiritual qualities of those monks. So it's telling us that those who have the ripening to have gathered there at Vulture's Peak with the Buddha, who's about to be asked a question that's gonna become a perfection of wisdom introduction. Those people there, they were not beginners. They had to have significant goodness already made in order for these seeds to be coming out of them. Do you see? So the great is talking about the quality of the practitioners that are there. They've been monks for a while, perhaps, or they're monks that have kept their vows really well, right? Just to have the vows isn't necessarily to keep the vows. So this is pointing out that here with Buddha is this great gathering of ordained people. high spiritual qualities. However, they are motivated for their own nirvana. Not meaning that underneath they're selfish slobs, but meaning that what they believe is the highest attainable thing is nirvana. They don't have the seeds for the, oh my gosh, what about everybody else? It's hard to imagine, right? That we could have high spiritual qualities and not have compassion and love included in that. But apparently, right, there is this phase in which, right, we are believing that the highest goal is nirvana. And there they are, ready to hear the Heart Sutra teaching. So that's the first half of who was there with Lord Buddha. The sentence says, Gendin Chenpo Dong. Dong means and. Chang Chub Sempe Gendin Chenpo, meaning there's another group there. The Chang Chub Sempe, we know that word, right? Chang Chub means Buddhahood. Sem means mind. Chang Chub Sem K is the wish for total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Chang Chub Sem Pa means somebody with that wish. So Geshe-la said it means warrior, spiritual warrior, Sempa. Chang Chub Sempa means spiritual warrior. But here meaning those who see that the ultimate state is achievable as total Buddhahood for everybody, not just my own nirvana. So gathered also with Buddha on Vulture's Peak are these beings, doesn't say only men, whose motivation is their bodhicitta. They already have bodhicitta. They have the wish to become a being who can help everyone become beings, who can help everyone become beings, right? I can't stop saying it. To reach ultimate happiness. And so also the term great does not necessarily mean there were a lot of them there. It means that they already had this strong motivation of compassion, this strong motivation of love, this higher, I don't want to say higher, this different goal that they were shooting for. So great ordained people and great ordained or not, but who already have bodhicitta arising, right? The wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of everyone, for the sake of everyone being the key factor here, right? Got it? That's who's gathered around Lord Buddha. I need to stop because we get to learn the first part of the meditation and do our preliminaries. So I haven't quite finished about the great bodhisattvas. I'm going to make a note and maybe we'll, no. Okay. Those great bodhisattvas have 7 qualities that I want to tell you about, but it's going to take too long. So I'm putting my mark here. And so let's spend the rest of class doing a meditation together. So if you need to stand up and stretch and wiggle to get ready, take your time to do so. we'll do our preliminaries and then learn the first step of Kedribje's 4-part meditation. We'll do the first step only. So set your posture first. Feel your sits bones pushing down into your chair, into your cushion. Pull your lower tummy in and up a little bit. Send that prana rising. Feel it rise, raising the crown of your head towards heaven. Your physical body's tethered strongly. Your spiritual being is rising, but not rising up and away. Bring your attention up into your breath somewhere at your nostrils. Find a spot with a sensation that you can follow. And with each exhale, your physical body relaxes. With each inhale, your intellect, your awareness becomes more alert, more keen, more interested. Recall that person you want to be able to help. Feel how real their distress is and how it's a result of a big mistake. Feel how much you wish you could help them, really help them. We would need to know exactly what they need to take up and what they need to give up. And so we turn our minds back to that precious being, our own personal guide. We know they know. We know they love us We know that if they could just make us into an enlightened being, they would do so. We know they are helping us make ourselves into that. And so recall your refuge in that holy being. Think of one of their good qualities and admire them for it. Tell them about this other person whose suffering you can't bear. Offer to your guide your wish to become one who can help that other stop that distress forever someday. Offer yourself to that guide. Give them permission to help you. See how happy they are with your offering. And so you feel safe to confess to them. Some seeds that you don't want to ever ripen. Tell them the facts. Tell them of your regret. Tell them of your refuge in karma and emptiness. Establish this meditation as your antidote force so that when we're done, know those seeds have been damaged. And then establish a power of restraint. And then fill that space with some rejoicing. Think of some specific kindness you've done. Maybe the opposite of what you just purified, even. Feel happy that you've done that. Find a few more rejoiceables to share with that being. Then ask them to please stay close to you. Ask them to continue to guide you, to inspire you. Ask them to help you be aware of them teaching, even when they appear as someone else, perhaps. Ask them to help you stay amongst others who inspire you. And dedicate just what we've done so far to seeing that others' distress melt away. And bring your attention back to your breath. If you need to shift or wiggle, now's the time. Now, to start this part of Kedrib J's meditation, we will learn to experience, simply experience. We will be exploring the heaps, starting with heap number 1, called the heap of form. But it means our physical experience. Most of it is visual for sighted beings. But we will explore experience of all 5 senses. All of it is included in what's called our heap of form, our physical being. So to begin, open your eyes and look around your room. See the objects there. Notice the colors, the shapes. Come all the way around. Everything in your visual. And when you have a sense of it, close your eyes. Come back to your breath. And then listen and follow along. One part of our physical nature is all the experiences of all the things we see. So in your mind's eye, look at the objects first in front of you, and then go around the room. The first time around, notice your mind identifying those objects. No analysis, just the experience. Oh, there's that and that. Now start again, this time. Be aware of simply the colors and shapes. It takes increased subtlety to be aware of that raw experience. You can imagine you're an infant with no names for things yet. Experiencing your physical experience of color and shape. This time, as you go around your room, come back to seeing yourself, your body, as if you're looking down at your arms or hands. But in that same way, colors and shapes. Simply raw experience if you can. all of it a part of you. Now shift from the experience of color and shape to the experience of sound. Focus on hearing. Not what you hear. Hearing. Outer sounds. Inner sounds. They all make up a part of you. Now switch to the sense of smell. Are there fragrances or odors? No need to identify their source, simply the experience we're looking for. Then tastes. Notice the taste in your mouth. And lastly, your tactile awareness. Sensation of the air on your skin, your clothing, your weight on your chair. Try to find the raw experience. Shift back to the taste. Shift back to the odor. Shift back to the sounds. Shift back to the visual. Nice. Now let that all go. Bring it to mind that person we just did this all for. It was our antidote for our own purification, and motivated to become one who could help that other in that deep and ultimate way. And so we have done a great goodness. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you and inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom inside of you. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, filled with filled with the wisdom. And may it be so. All right. Thank you, everyone. I will see you again on Friday morning. Please tune in to Rejoicing Festival. I won't be there till about noon, but I know it's already going on. Yay. So we'll add our 2 cents. Yeah. Heart Sutra to Geshe Michael. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm stopping the recording. Again, I apologize.
Thank you, dear Holy Lama.
Okay.
You teacher.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Lama, for teaching. Please stay.
Please stay.
Stop recording.